Imagine you're 12 years old, it's dark outside, and instead of getting ready for school, you're walking to a giant, noisy building where you'll work for 12 hours straight. No TikTok, no Fortnite, just spinning machines, all day long. No real weekends, no times to relax, just hours of long, back-breaking work. So how did life get like this? Well, in today's video, we're looking at one man who helped to create that new world of work. You may have already heard of him. His name was Richard Arkwright, and he went from poor kid to a wig maker to being one of the richest men in Britain. This was because he helped build something completely new, the factory system. So stick around to the end because I'm going to ask you one question. Was he a genius hero of progress or the man who trapped people in factories? And I want you to leave your comments underneath and decide which of them do you think he was. Richard Arkwright wasn't born rich. As a boy in 18th century England, he didn't go to a smart grammar school or university. In fact, he trained as a barber and a wig maker, travelling around cutting hair and making fancy wigs for rich customers. But Arkwright had two things that many people didn't. Firstly, he had an eye for business, and secondly, he had a brain full of ideas. In the 1760s, he heard about new spinning machines that could twist cotton thread faster than any human hand. He didn't invent all the parts himself, but he was brilliant at spotting other people's inventions and turning them into profit. And so, he worked with mechanics to improve a machine called the water frame, a spinning machine powered by water and not by muscle. This is where his life changed. Instead of a tiny workshop, he realised he needed power, real power. He needed flowing water. And so, in 1775, Arkwright opened a huge water-powered cotton mill beside the River Derwent at Cromford in Derbyshire. Many historians call it one of the world's first modern factories. Just picture it, a 5-storey stone building, water rushing under a giant wheel, powering rows and rows of spinning frames. Inside, up to 800 workers ran the machinery. That's like your whole year group, plus the year above, and possibly the year above that as well, all inside one building, doing repetitive jobs to keep the machines running. Before this, most spinning and weaving had happened in cottages with people working at home, using simple wheels and looms. This had been called the domestic system, or putting out system. Now, Arkwright's idea was very different. He thought that if you bring all the workers and all the machines together under one roof, you can control the hours, control the power, and massively increase production. As a result, the Cromford Mill made him rich, very rich. In fact, by the time Arkwright died in 1792, he had built more factories across places like Staffordshire, Manchester and Scotland, and he'd become one of the wealthiest men in Britain with a personal fortune of around £500,000, worth tens of millions today. So you see, Arkwright's real invention wasn't just a machine, it was a whole new system and way of doing things. Instead of spinning being made a side job in cottages, work moved into big purpose-built buildings. These factories were designed for heavy machinery, powered by water and later by steam. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of workers were needed to keep them going. By around 1800, there were about 900 cotton mills in Britain. Most of them were in Lancashire in the northwest of England. So why there? Well, Lancashire was chosen because it had plenty of coal, which was perfect for running steam engines. Also, it had good conditions for the damp air helped to stop cotton threads from snapping. And ports like Liverpool brought in raw cotton from the Americas. At the heart of this new cotton empire was Manchester, which grew from a small market town of about 10,000 people in the early 1700s to a city of around 380,000 people by 1860. That's why it earned the nickname Cottonopolis, a whole city built on cotton. People flooded into these new industrial towns, hoping for wages and a better life. But what did that actually look like inside the factory? First thing you'd notice is the noise. Dozens of spinning machines clattering, belts whirring, wheels grinding. You have to shout to be heard. The second thing was the rules. Workers had to arrive on time, often before dawn. The factory bell or clock controlled their day, not the sun, not their families, not themselves. A normal shift might last between 12 and 14 hours, 6 days a week. Many of the workers were women and children. In some mills, children as young as 8 or 9 were employed to run under the machines, tying broken threads or cleaning fluff. There are stories of children losing fingers or limbs if they slipped or moved too slowly around the dangerous machinery. Now imagine after 14 constant days, if it's hot or you haven't slept well, you might wake at 10 years old very tired, but you couldn't just take a day off sick. So you would go in and have to try your best to concentrate. Now today, for a child of 10, tiredness could lead to a small mistake in class with no consequence at all. Back then, a small mistake could cost a finger, a hand, or even an arm, and that could cost you your working career, as there was no such thing as sick pay or unemployment benefits. At Cromford, Arkwright tried something new. He built rows of cottages near the mill and rented them to his workers. On the one hand, this gave families somewhere to live. On the other, it meant that their whole lives, home, work, free time, were controlled by the factory owner. If you lost your job, you could lose your house too. So yes, Arkwright created a system of jobs with cheaper cotton, but it also meant long hours, tough discipline, and very little freedom for workers. So you see, Arkwright's mills were part of something much bigger. They helped contribute to Britain's global cotton industry. By the early 1800s, Britain could produce cotton cloth faster and more cheaply than any other country. British cotton exports exploded, rising from just under 250,000 in the 1770s to around £29 million by the 1820s, around 62% of all British exports. So where did all this cotton come from? Well, much of the raw cotton was grown on plantations in the Americas using enslaved labour until slavery was abolished in the British Empire in 1833. So the story of the factory is also a story of empire, trade and exploitation far beyond Britain's shores. If you're interested in slavery in the British Empire, then I also have a series of videos on this aspect of history. Before this, India had been famous for its beautiful hand-woven cotton textiles, but by the 1820s, Indian weavers struggled to compete with the huge volumes and low prices of British machine-made cloth. This meant that traditional skills that had existed for centuries were suddenly under threat. So Arkwright's factory system didn't just change lives in Derbyshire Valley, it helped shift the balance of power in world trade. Historians argue about how we should judge Richard Arkwright. On the hero side, people point out that he was incredibly ambitious and organised. He helped kickstart industrialisation, created thousands of jobs and made cotton cloth cheaper. His factories showed a new way to organise production, a model that spread across the world. On the villain side, critics say that he helped trap workers in harsh conditions. His strict rules, long hours and use of child labour made him rich, whilst others stayed poor. The factory system broke up old ways of life, forced families into crowded industrial towns, and made workers completely dependent on their employers. In truth, Arkwright was a bit of both, a man of his time and a symbol of the Industrial Revolution itself, exciting new technology and big profits on one side, noise, pollution and suffering on the other. So let's quickly recap a couple of points. Arkwright helped to develop the water-powered factory system and build mills like Cromford that brought workers and machines together under one roof. This new system turned Britain into the world's leading cotton producer, powering cities like Manchester, which became known as Cottonopolis. But it also meant long hours, dangerous work and a huge change in people's lives, from cotton spinning to strict factory discipline. Here's your challenge. In the comments, write one sentence answering this question. Was Richard Arkwright more of a hero of progress or a villain of workers? If this helped you to understand the factory system, hit like so that other history students can find it. and subscribe to Mrs. B History for more Industrial Revolution stories, including what it was like to be a child working in these mills. Thanks for watching, and remember, behind every machine is a human story.